All right, YouTube, it's rather cold. That's, by the way, why I'm not really making videos out here much. So this will be a fairly quick video. I'm not really going to respond to the whole Republican debate because four of the people up on that stage were utterly meaningless. People within the media can pretend that Jeb is still relevant, or Carson is still relevant, or Kasich or Christie were ever relevant. They're not. None of these individuals will be the nominee. That is known. It's not going to happen. And really, the highlight of the debate, and I think the polls are fairly clear who won the debate. It was Donald Trump. Predictable. But by a larger margin, perhaps, than some would have originally considered. You see, Cruz finally got up the balls to try to take a swipe at Trump. Now, what do we know about trying to do that? It doesn't work. People keep making the same mistake. Fiorina made that mistake, she collapses. Carson made that mistake, Carson collapses. It happens over and over again. At this point, it's a fool's errand. Cruz got his brass balls on and decided to talk about Trump's New York values. And now people are comparing it to Howard Dean's moment many, many years ago when he was originally from my state, former governor of my state. Oh, what great shame it brought to us Vermonters. It was terrible. It made people's hearts break to think that the former governor of Vermont acted in such a manner. But he may have had his Howard Dean moment, because when he attacked Trump on New York values, now what he meant is, oh, well, New York, it's liberal, it's not gun friendly, whatever. Trump turned it around and talked about 9/11. Now, using 9/11 as a campaign strategy, as we see with Chris Christie, who speaks about it every time he speaks, doesn't really work. But Trump hasn't made it an issue so far. So when he decided to pull it out to go back against Cruz for making his New York values statement, it worked. The hit landed masterfully, and you could almost see the pain on Ted Cruz's Canadian face, wincing actually a little bit and nervously giggling, because he realized that what he had just said just gave Trump the perfect ammunition to completely annihilate him. I would not be surprised if this fucks Ted Cruz. Now, I mean, will it fuck him in like some flyover state where people are primarily supporting him because he's more evangelical than most of the other candidates and he happens not to be black like Carson? Maybe not, but as far as the possibility of him having been competitive in a place like New Hampshire, forget about it. Not going to happen. He probably just fucked his own campaign with just a few seconds of talking. It's actually wonderful how this can happen in a political campaign. We remember the 47% comments of Romney. It was only one clip, only a few minutes long, and it fucked his campaign. Up until that point, he had been competitive. After that, he was not, unless you paid attention to Karl Rove's unskewed polls. This happens, what the hell was his fucking name there, that retard from somewhere in the Midwest that talked about legitimate rape, Mordock or something his name was, from 2014, who got fucked and didn't get reelected. It's the same tune over and over again. You have an otherwise viable candidate who makes a very big tactical error, and somehow that means that they're no longer really viable. Now, to some people, like myself, the whole 9/11 thing, that's quite a while ago. When a person like Christie trots it out to say, well, you've got to listen to my policy proposal because 9/11. We don't want 9/11 again, so you have to adopt this policy that I happen to have designed. It's just a pile of bullshit. It's just a way for them to pander. But when another candidate has openly attacked the values of not a proportion of your city, Trump's from New York City, not just a portion of the people there, or specifically the government of New York City, which is admittedly way out there, like in La La Land. That's true, and Trump would probably agree, by the way. When you attack the whole city's population, that doesn't look good. That's another tactical error that people make, not just within the GOP, but within both parties. whether it's the nomination stage or the general election makes no difference. They're so busy focused on a handful of swing states because they're not really focused on the states that they're going to win by 20, 30 points anyway. They're focusing on swing states. They forget to try to be competitive elsewhere where they might make headway if they actually knew what they were doing, because they themselves have locked themselves in such a bitter partisan struggle that it becomes impossible for them to do so. Donald Trump is the one candidate up on stage. By the way, I think disqualifying Rand was a mistake on their part. This is energizing the outsiders. Again, the only outsider on the stage, who is it? It's Donald Trump. The fact that Rand Paul was excluded from the debate makes people gain more fervor in their distaste for establishment candidates. They see the one outsider on stage, they're going to flock to Trump. That's going to give him the edge he needs. At this point, with Ted Cruz making the statement that he made about New York values, and it's going viral right now, which I correctly predicted the second that I saw it. I said, oh, it's all over for Cruz. He'll probably lose Iowa. He'll probably lose a couple points off that. So I would revise my estimate. I think Trump will probably win Iowa at this point. Not looking good for Ted Cruz. And even the people on Fox who are kind of, lukewarm in their liking for Trump, they're really not that on board with him. O'Reilly, he's like a Jeb dude or something. Even though they're not really on board with all of Trump's proposals, and they realize that, he's not going to make abortion or gay marriage platforms of his candidacy because he's too smart to do that. Even they're admitting he had his strongest debate performance. Cruz got completely annihilated. I know there are a lot of people within the establishment GOP that see Cruz as the acceptable alternative to a truly controlled insider because he's not a true outsider. Then again, he's also not eligible to be the president of the United States. He's not, provably. People making these legal references to, the Naturalization Act or something, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Ted Cruz was not born in the United States. Doesn't matter that he was eligible for citizenship, and he only just renounced his Canadian citizenship a few years ago. He's not eligible. He's also not eligible for people saying Trump should take him as VP. He's not eligible to be VP. The VP is the person who becomes the president if the president is killed or incapacitated. You got to be a moron to support Ted Cruz. If Ted Cruz got nominated, the first thing the Democratic Party would do is file a lawsuit. They'd drag it through federal court. It'd be 2000 all over again, and they don't even fucking realize it. You're completely moronic if you're supporting Ted Cruz. Not eligible. He just fucked himself. If he can fuck himself. Trump didn't egg him on. Trump didn't initiate the conflict. He initiated the conflict without thinking of the long-term ramifications of what he was saying and got screwed. You put somebody like that, regardless of how he's generally decent at debating, up against Hillary Clinton, muffled as she may be, older as she may be, kind of pandering and dishonest as she may be, she will rip him apart. Warning to the Republican Party. Thankfully for the GOP, though, I don't see him getting nominated. I think Cruz just fucked himself. If there was a remote chance of him pulling off a win based on a strong enough showing in Iowa before, I would like to think that this, if it continues to go viral as it currently is, you look up New York values on Twitter or anywhere else right now, what the fuck are you seeing? It's a million people saying that Ted Cruz can go fuck himself. That's not going to look good for his poll numbers. He didn't even win the debate anyway on any other measure. He came in second in a debate where there are exactly 3 viable candidates left. Rubio, I don't think he did well enough to launch himself up to be within striking distance. Jeb is a non-issue at this point. Kasich is a non-issue. Carson could maybe win Oklahoma, where he was briefly ahead, maybe, or Louisiana. That's about all he can muster. Christie, nobody cares about Christie. He's the next Howard Taft, by which I mean he's about 350 pounds. Policy-wise, there's no way to tell because Chris Christie continuously changes his ideas on every policy. And I say this, by the way, for anyone who's not aware, for anyone who's just looking up New York values and seeing this video, I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat, but I'm also not a Republican. I'll be voting for Gary Johnson. But anyone who watched this debate and thought Ted Cruz did well. After such a complete and utter foible as New York values, you got to reevaluate whether his candidacy is really viable now at this point, when he's going to have associated with his name for the next few days, going up right against the edge of the beginning of the primaries, a whole bunch of pictures of 9/11 next to Ted Cruz's shit-faced grin, his shit-eating grin rather, and him talking about how New York values are, homogenous in being completely disarmed, completely liberal. These people are just shooting each other and crazy. Yeah, we know what Ted Cruz actually meant. He was talking about the liberal New York City mentality. Still didn't sound good. Still allowed his opponent to get a complete powerhouse of a hit in. It crippled him. Ted Cruz is now gasping on the floor, and his balls really hurt, if he had any to begin with. He tried to get it up. It was a little bit like watching the really skinny, wimpy dude try to stand up for himself and just get completely KO'd by the beach bum or something like that in a classic kids cartoon. Didn't work. He tried. He failed, just as other candidates have tried and failed as well. That's about all. Peace out.